welcome all of you to Banking Frontiers hosting this program, Adaptive Cybersecurity, Applying the Theory of Evolution. This is a new kind of topic, a new way of looking at cybersecurity. And we're trying to learn from nature, which is the most universal teacher around. So let's see what we get out of it. My name is Manoj Agrawal and the group editor at Banking Frontiers.
I'm Avinash Shukla and I work in UCO Bank, and right now I have the responsibility of CISO of UCO Bank.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Manoj, for inviting me for this discussion. I'm Babita, CISO of CSB Bank, which is formerly known as Catalyst VM Bank. I'm in about more than 16 years experience in IT, and after that I've moved from IT to security.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm Prabhakar. I have nearly 2.5 decades of experience in IT, information security, business continuity, privacy, and quality, software engineering, etc. So that's in brief about me. And I work for FSS, and I had risk and compliance division. I'm a chief risk and compliance officer, kind of a role I'm playing.
Good afternoon to all. I'm Nagamohan, CISO, Bank of India. I have 17 years of experience in IT, and before that, 15 years of experience in banking operations.
Okay.
And I have been CISO of this bank, Bank of India, for last 2.5 years.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Makesh Chandramohan. I am a group CISO for Aditya Birla Capital. I have close to 18 years experience in cybersecurity, privacy, and business continuity management.
Hi, Manoj. Thanks for having me here. Good afternoon to all the panelists. My name is Dhananjay Ganju. I'm the managing director of F5 Networks, and it's a pleasure to host you here today. I've been associated with the Indian IT industry for almost 27 years, and have worked with software and enterprise IT and security companies. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhananjay. Welcome. Sudarshan, your introduction, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me on this esteemed panel discussion, Manoj. My name is Sudarshan. I'm a security solution architect for F5 at APCJ for the APCJ region. I'm a CISA, CISSP. I mean, close to 20 years of experience in the InfoSec domain, starting as an auditor and then as an implementer, worked at SIs, at HP, and now at F5 for close to a decade.
What we are missing out is learning from nature. We had been little more cautious and little more attentive towards nature. Perhaps the crisis would have been lesser. The more we understand nature, obviously, the better we are all going to be. And what is most well known about nature is the Darwin's theory of evolution, how different species and different animals and different life forms adapt. Now, we are not going to get into that whole theory of species or theory of evolution, but I could pick up small parts of it that I thought would actually help us make an interesting discussion here today. And among the various, we look at how we are all built up, the different components we have in our body and the different functions that each component plays. Then from the security perspective, obviously it is the skin, which is something that closely relates to what security is about. And if you look at the skin, and I did some study on that, it is surprisingly the most durable part of your body. You know, your bones will break, your teeth will decay and fall out, your hair will go, and it is already going for me, for example. And your heart will give up at some time, your kidney, lungs, all of us face, as we age, these kind of problems. But you probably have never come across someone who said, oh, my skin is giving up on me, you know. It is surprisingly one of the most durable things. So I thought maybe we as all of us as information security professionals can learn to think in terms of long-term durability. So who would like to start and comment on, you know, long-term thinking?
Manoj, this is really a very interesting comparison. which you have made with respect to cybersecurity. Uh, when you have told about the skin, as you rightly said, cybersecurity of an organization is like the skin of our body. Security tools like firewall, WAF, DDoS, endpoint security, etc., will act like a skin to our organization, where we expect the first hit of the attack will be prevented.
Yes.
So it is not about the long term of the solution as far as CISO is concerned. How capable is the solution to meet the latest trend of cyber attacks? That is the way I would like to think. As we always say, every lock has a key. And when we come up with a solution to defend our system, our hackers will always try to find a loophole to exploit it and get into the system. So when, as a CISO, I always must have will think about a multi-layered security system, wherein one layer fails to identify the attack, the next layer does that. And as far as the bank is concerned, our network is so wide that visibility of the assets, the shadow IT, zero-day threat are the major concerns which come across to us. And we are always adaptive to latest technologies so that we get a foolproof system in place. So that I would say that adaptability of the system is not based on the durability or how long we can use that system, or how means like whether it lasts for 10 years or not. It is not like that. Security, when it comes to security, we should always say that it's capability, whether how far it is able to defend our system.
Okay.
So I will always go for the capability of the system based on that I would like to adapt the system.
Okay, that sounds good. That is interesting. Who else would like to give a different perspective?
Yeah, Manoj and to the team, long-term perspective or long-term strategy for the security. So what we need to do is that what is it we are trying to protect. So we should be clear on that. So that is one thing. So the classification and what is it we are trying to protect in a long term and a medium term or whatever that strategy should be clear. So we should know what is it we are trying to protect. We are not trying to protect anything, everything on the globe. That is one part. Second, what is specific to our organization? That is very clear. Example, today we are all probably entire panel is in the BFSS vertical. We are service providers to the bank. So we have bank has got certain elements beyond a service provider. They may be having core banking, they may be having treasury. They have so many systems. Example, like but I am a service provider. I have certain amount of data coming to me. Certain systems I am responsible for. So I should be very clear on what is that I am protecting and whom I am protecting. So what is the interest I am serving? So we have to be very clear on all these fundamentals. And am I going to sail in the same way for future also? Or am I going to diversify? What kind of other interests I am going to bring it into my business? So if at all I am a little bit diversifying into core banking, so what are the associated risks I am bringing in? So if I am diversifying into medical field, example, just I'm taking a very weird example. So what is the other elements of data I am bringing into my environment? So I should be very clear on what is that I am going to defend in a short term or in a long term. And one is the technology part of life. Another one is the kind of data I'm going to protect. Ultimately, we are all trying to protect the data from sniffing or from exfiltration, whatever the jargons you wanted to use, you can use it. So for that, various technologies we use and various processes we use. Ultimately, human element also comes into the picture. Plus, there is a physical security aspect of it. So what I constantly say is that one is the technology side. Of course, you identify what are all your crown jewels, what are the things you want to protect. Second, what is the human element and what is the level of awareness you have to give it to the teams. So risk aware culture is very important and ensure that everybody is thinking in those lines. It's not like only the CISO will think or only the CIO will think or the managing director will think. So everybody should think security as part of their life. It's like, breakfast, lunch, dinner kind of a stuff for everybody. So that is one. So whether it is your today's scenario or after 10 years scenario, awareness and your culture, that matters a lot. So if you ask me, InfoSec is more than a technology, it is a culture. InfoSec is a culture. So you have to bring the transformation and a cultural change that will protect your long-term interest of the organization. So
great. Thank you, Prabha.
So I look at it.
Yeah. So cultural aspect and response aspect like Babita. Mr. Nagamohan, would you like to add your perspective? How do you think the skin inspires you to be a better CISO?
Skin doesn't inspire me much.
Okay.
So
Something else?
comparing cyber security with skin may not reflect the whole picture of cyber security.
Okay.
Say, for example, Corona is there. Your skin doesn't help you in protecting from Corona.
Correct.
See, it will enter into your body in many ways. See, what actually protects you is your immune system. So probably the cyber security, maybe you may compare it, particularly the adaptive cyber security, which we are talking about today. Maybe you can compare with the immune system of the body rather than simply skin. That is the way I am looking at it. See, the body adapts itself if some new attack comes. It understands that it's a foreign body. The body adapts itself to the new one, tries to create antibodies on its own, try to fight with it, or to keep that memory for future attacks also.
Yes.
This probably you may compare the adaptive cybersecurity to the human immune system rather than the skin. That is the way I'm looking at. Because you have asked for a different perspective, I'm just trying to give that.
Yeah, that's the whole idea.
Yes. And I fully agree with Mr. Prabhakar on one point. See, as far as the social engineering is concerned, only awareness can protect you. No amount of cyber security can protect from cyber, particularly cyber attacks, social engineering. Awareness. So their culture matters a lot, which can be developed. But as a CISO, you can do a little, particularly as far as your customers are concerned. You may give a lot of YouTube this one and all for awareness purposes. You may create a lot of awareness this one, but still, it's the culture that matters, which will be developed over a period of time. As far as social engineering attacks are concerned, I fully agree with him as far as that point is concerned.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think we can. Culture is such an interesting topic. We can have a complete discussion on that later on, maybe separately. Anyone else has some other perspective, skin and immune system, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to add to it. Yes. Actually, you have said regarding that long-term perspective, but what is happening, this adaptive security, you can see it in other way also. Like hackers or attackers are more adaptive than us, because what we are doing, we are making a secure system, but what they are doing, they are adapting themselves. This social engineering, what Nagamohan sir said, that social engineering, it is the outcome of our very stringent and very good cyber security, because we are secured enough, they are not able to do anything, so they are moving towards social engineering. Second thing, like we have introduced that two-factor authentication or that dynamic authentication OTP. So that has also added to this social engineering, because hackers are not finding ways to breach that, or they have to put a lot of effort to get that OTP through technical means. So they are diverted to that. So we have to see that also. If we'll think about very long-term perspective, but hackers are very much adaptive, so that may work or may not work. Long-term may help. Yes. Long-term may help. Like what is the organization's strategy? If we are clear that after 5 years, after 10 years, or after 15 years, what our organization will be doing, and like earlier panelist also said, what diversification or what we are going to do. So as per that, we can think of something that our security solution will be adaptive to that situation also, and we will be able to tackle those integrations or those new field areas. But right now, we have to think in two ways. First, we have to make it secure at present. as present scenario, and we have to think also that in this security how these attackers can breach. That also we have to think. That will not be done by alone. Means full society, all members who are responsible for this defense, they have to think together. They have to share intelligence, and then only means we can achieve our goal. That's it.
Absolutely agree. So all of you actually brought up 2 points. There's a long-term perspective, which is like survival of the species, and there is a short-term perspective, which is survival of that individual human being or animal or plant or whatever it is. So both perspectives are important, right? Let's hear from Sudarshan maybe. As a technology company, how do you see short-term versus long-term protection? Do IT companies actually do think long-term also?
Absolutely. So rightly, I mean, I would go with Nagamohan sir's example, right? You consider the security as an immune system and body as the business, right? If you are stationary and if you are in one geography, you might adapt to it and say that, okay, in Chennai, most of the time it's going to be hot and humid. So this is how I need to kind of acclimatize myself for this environment. But say if you are a business, which is actually, and you as a body is going to move to say a Delhi to tomorrow, and you're going to probably go into a Middle East, you probably go into a Kashmir or something, right? So you have to ensure that you are able to adapt, and that's how BFSI industry very specifically is today, right? Businesses, right? Pretty much, we never thought that BFSI industry would move into public cloud, but I think many of them here have actually got businesses that were moved out from data center and have actually got into public cloud. Just the infrastructure part. We never thought that the banking would always be within the physical bank. We never thought that there would be something which is today a virtual way where you can just go into your mobile and open up an account and start doing transactions with an account even without visiting a bank. You do virtual KYCs and so on. You never thought that how the banking system would actually start collaborating with the non-banking partners that each one of them is looking. That's how you see that the business is going to different geographies, right? And you have to adapt or have your immune system that can actually adapt to it such that you don't get infected or you don't get any kind of disease or you're not affected by that, and you are able to adapt to each of these moving conditions. So yes, okay, organizations definitely have started to look at it, and that goes to the fundamentals that Prabhakar sir and Babita ma'am talked about. One is they look at like, okay, what are my crown jewels? When I actually start exposing it to or adapt a particular business model, then what are my crown jewels? It goes back to the same fundamentals of looking at what is my exposure, what are my threat vectors, what are my risks, what are my probability of doing this, and then saying that, okay, what is the solution that can I have, and whether the solution that I adapt or I go in for, whether it is like a standalone solution that can address only one risk, or should I go in for a defense or a layered solution, whereby if one fails, I have a second mechanism to take care of it, or maybe the 100% of the risk, maybe the first solution covers 50% or 70% of the risk, but there is a residual risk for which I have a 30% of it. And then banks and pretty much every business says, I accept that amount of risk. Maybe I will do a back-end insurance with it. The probability is less with doing that. That's typically the model that's followed, not just BFSI, pretty much across enterprises and every business that is done. Yeah.
I would like to take this in a different way. I don't think any single technology or any single solution will help us to be adaptable. So adaptable is a mindset, I would say. It's a thought process, and it has to be continuous in place. It is like I would like to give an analogy. Adaptable is very similar to what you do while you actually hike a big mountain. You get acclimatize yourself at various phases of the mountain, right? So basically you get used to it. You say to your mind that my body has gone to this level. Now my body has to react in this level. That's a learning process which it takes, right? Once it gets into that process, automatically your mind and body will get used to that particular weather, right? Similarly, at every phase, we do this. I think it's a state of mind, which I would say, the adaptability. So none of the single solution will help us to be adaptable while you are putting your cyber protection in place. It is a combination of multiple solutions. It's a combination of mindset, and it is a continuous process which evolves over the period of time. And I would like to add one point for your previous question as well. It's about evaluation. It's nothing very simple, I would say. We all know that it's very inevitable, but it requires a lot of courage to put forward, to put a long-term thinking. Because when the whole world thinks about something different, you have to put it something completely different, which is very difficult for somebody to accept it, and it has to be justified. 5 years back, as Sudarshan was talking about, 5 years back, I don't think most of the banking and financial services organization would have thought about moving to a cloud, right? And most of the organizations were 100% rigid on working from home option, even for their business continuity arrangements.
Oh, yeah.
Today's situation is completely different. I think we have adopted, we have been compelled, I would say, to take a decision which is completely different from what we would have taken 5 years back.
Mr. Nagamohan, would you like to comment on evolution of technology? Is
Yeah.
it adaptable? Apart from the mindset that Makesh referred to, what else needs to be adaptable?
See, adaptability has always been there, first of all.
Okay.
As Mr. Makesh has pointed out, 5 years ago, the cyber security, the way we looked at it, and today what we are looking at and the way we are ready for it are completely different. A lot of difference has been there. But this adaptability has been manual. So what we have been discussing, this adaptive cyber security, particularly the point of discussion today, it is talking about automating it as much as possible. The adaptability, maybe it's not possible in a very long term. You cannot see in a long, you cannot keep a system which will work for the next 20 years, which is adaptable and take care of everything. It's impossible. You have to keep changing also. The life cycle will be there for each solution. But as of today, if you say whether we are really adaptable, yes, we are manually, not automatically. The attackers are more adaptable compared to our CISOs. Frankly speaking, I'm telling you, this is the truth. We have many reasons for that. Because see, the AI and ML, which are being used by the attackers, are in a very advanced stage compared to us. The simple mundane products which deal with the basic statistics, they actually wrap it up in the name of machine language, machine learning and AI, and sell it to you. Today, we do not have many security solutions which are very well defined by AI and ML. We do not have. Now, yes, it is evolving now. It's evolving, but we do not have at this moment not any great solution, particularly actually which is enabled by AI and ML as of yet. But it is evolving. But the adaptation, the way they are adapting, the attackers are adapting it more compared to the defense side, we people. That is the way I'm looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Babita, what would you say are some of the most adaptable solutions, kinds of solutions that you see in the security landscape today?
Yeah. As other speakers like Nagmohan sir and I have said, I would like to quote some examples also in this part. This technology, as we all know, is evolving very fast, and hackers are also exploiting new vulnerabilities in the system. So it's like a cat and mouse game. So when it comes to security, we cannot adapt a technology based on the lifespan, as I have told earlier also. It is based on how far the exploitations can be defended. If I take the example of our SOC, earlier we trusted on the SIEM tool, and now it is we are trusting. We have come up with a AI-based SIEM tool which will reduce the false positives and to identify threats at a faster pace. And we have adopted it. And now we are adopting the AI-based, which is more of predictive capabilities. And now on top of this, we are now adapting SOAR on top of the SIEM for more visibility and the incident response. So that it is like it is evolving. Adaptability is evolving from time to time based on our need. That is what is required. and with it, the like hackers are, as Nagmohan sir has told rightly, they are much more adaptive to technologies, and they are doing things in much faster pace than what do we do. And that is what in the Maitri tree they have tried to come up with technologies like incidents policies need to be put in place based on the incidents which has happened, and how the vulnerability is being exploited by the fraudsters. So we have to come up with solutions at different levels, taking all this into consideration, like how a hacker will think, what way he can get into my system. So we should be, and we should adapt the technology in such a way that it meets our requirement according to the architecture of our organization.
Right. Okay, got it. Thanks. So if I may come to Prabhakar and ask you take on what Babita has just said, that an organization needs quick response to respond to whatever the new things that hackers are coming up, but also organization needs to plan for whatever business wants. So as a risk and compliance professional, and not just as a from the security perspective, how do you see short-term response versus long-term response? Do you see technologies playing a main role, or culture, of course, you mentioned about, but apart from these two, what else do you see as helping in short-term and long-term adaptation?
Yeah.
Systemic adaptation, let me say systemic rather than long-term.
Yeah, that's what. Again, I will go to some fundamental things, because cybersecurity I will always look from a management perspective. That's my passion. I don't look at cybersecurity from a technology or a security as a word perspective. So what is that we wanted to adapt? We have to be very clear. So today, all the CISOs first adapt one thing, that prevention is not possible. Still, a lot of CISOs have not accepted this fact. So prevention is beyond our control. Can anybody challenge today that I prevent everything? So that is the first adaptation people should do. So you take NIST framework, or you take any framework. Now everybody will talk about protect, detect, correct. Prevent has gone to a little bit of a silence, because we don't know from which direction the threat will come. So what we have to do is that's what I was also telling yesterday many times. So I'm not telling that you should not eye on prevention. Definitely prevention is better than cure. So prevention is definitely required. So when you are focusing your strategy, when you are strategizing your strategy, you should have certain amount on prevention, certain amount on detection, certain amount on other correctives and other areas. So what is that you wanted to prevent? How much money you wanted to put on prevention? If you think that you will put everything to prevent, if you ask me personally, definitely it's not possible. You are only increasing your budget. You are only making it more tougher for yourself. So that is the reason what we have to do is that one is the prevention. So from the adaptation perspective, if you ask me, you have to be very clear on what are all the things you wanted to prevent. And example, I will do encryption. Yes, one way it is a prevention, one way it is a what to call protection. So I do encryption, I do EDR. So there are certain technologies or certain processes you will put in place which will help you in doing certain preventive activities. It doesn't mean that you should not have SIM. SIM is not a preventive technology. It's more of a reactive and a detective and incident response kind of a technology, because it reads logs, it studies the behavior. After things have come into your environment, then it will alert you. So what is your money? What is the money you are putting on? Either on detection or on your corrective action type of a technology, or to support further investigations. So that is also a technology you are investing, but that is not from a preventive perspective. Similarly, you are also doing a lot of monitoring through your other tools. Your CPU monitoring you are doing, your user activity monitoring you are doing. So you are also putting a lot of money on your monitoring technologies. So what I say is that the way you wanted to adapt yourself, you have to accept certain facts. Always we can't say that I prevent everything. Always I can't say that I will detect everything. So what you have to do is that in a holistic perspective, you have to see your prevent, protect, detect, monitor all those technologies, all those processes, all those awareness campaigns and all. through any of these things, we should be able to protect ourselves.
My third question is always that security has to work alongside business, and business always is much more demanding than what security can deliver. Business wants everything, wants to give the maximum freedom to the customer actually to do things in the kind of things that the customer wants, and customers have become increasingly demanding. So how do you see the play between sales and marketing on one side and security on the other side? How can security using modern concepts, modern tools, modern technologies actually empower sales and marketing to go ahead and give the customer even more? Typically, CISO has been playing the role, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you have to put limits on this, or you have to put controls on that. But with better and better technology, are CISOs actually able to give the business much more flexibility, much more convenience, much more creativity to do what they want to do? How CISOs enabling this creativity? Can we hear something? Maybe Mukesh wants to say something. Mukesh, you unfortunately dropped out, so we carried on, but glad to have you back.
Yeah, no problem, Manoj. Actually, things have changed a lot, Manoj. This is my experience, I would say, and I'm pretty sure my fellow peers will also accept to this. Now, it is not like sales and marketing on the other side and CISOs on IT on the other side. I think now there are a lot more collaboration which is happening at the business side, because everybody at an CXO level is owning the business right now. It is not a single function. Today, I think sales and marketing does much more understanding about the technology. They bring new fintech companies on boarded based on the business requirements, what they are foreseeing right now. And technology is actually talking a lot more business than the sales and marketing, because they are being given the numbers right now. So things are changing. So it is not on a silo now, it is a collaborative exercise. So any strategic initiatives which are being happening or initiated at an organization level, now it's being accountable by a lot of stakeholders, and everybody have to work together to attain the common goal. I think that's something which is happening right now. And this is not only from the organization perspective, as you rightly said, now customers want everything, right? They want the best of experience, which includes security as well. Because now I think, I'm not saying 100%, but a lot of customers right now, especially from banking and financial services, they are well understood about their privacy requirements. They have well understood about their security requirements. They are very keen to understand how we are protecting their data. And that consciousness and the right to know about what's happening with their data and their transactions have put organization into a much more stable mode right now, where they were not able to ignore security as a separate part. Now it's going as a package. So when innovation is happening at one side, I think security gets stitched with that, along with that, to make that success. I think this is a change which was happening for the last few years. Now it has really gone to that level where CISOs are part of most of the strategic initiatives across, because they know that at any given point in time, CISOs are going to come back and put a roadblock or show a red flag, says that this cannot go ahead, right? And because of the accountability at the highest level, including senior management and board, right now, nobody wants to take that call of sidelining CISOs or a cybersecurity per se, for that matter.
Absolutely.
So I think things are changing. I think for a betterment of everybody, I think now it is being considered as a collaborative exercise.
Okay, let me come to Mr. Naga Mohan with a very specific issue, in the sense, with the increasing number of frauds that customers are getting exposed to, accounts being hacked or OTPs being hacked and all that. How is the organization responding to that? Is it more of the CISOs are responding to such complaints, or it is the business that is responding, or it is some kind of integrated approach to handle all these kind of phishing attacks on different kinds of customers and
Yes.
the complaints that are coming from that?
Yeah. I agree with your last approach. It should be an integrated approach, because digital banking and digital transactions, it has become, nowadays, particularly during the pandemic days, it has become more and more vibrant. The importance has increased.
Yes.
Now, it is not pertaining to a CISO or a bank or an institution It is pertaining to the whole economy, I tell you. Even there should be a central approach, a common central approach to bring awareness into the minds of the people, particularly this OTP related frauds and other frauds, UPA related frauds, whatever you say. These are all social engineering attacks. Social engineering attacks, as I have already told you, there is no actually medicine, direct medicine, security related medicine is there. Only awareness can protect you, protect the customer. How the awareness can be inculcated in the customer? It can be by various channels, by all together. See, it's not that only Bank of India or some other bank will try to educate its own customers. It's the whole lot of the public who are using digital transactions, they should be educated. A common central approach should be there.
Dhananjay, what is your take on facilitating business and ensuring security? And of course, now we're talking two kinds of security. One is security where the customer is the weak point, and the other is obviously the security where the bank's weaknesses are exploited.
No, security definitely, as was said by the panelists here, that they play an extremely important role in terms of what products the bank or the financial institution is taking to the market. And I'll give you two very quick examples that have happened during our discussions. And one of them is very simple one. A financial aggregator wants to publish the various short-term deposit rates of different banks and has a list of clients that may want to, apply for one of those. At that time, the financial aggregator is actually federating with a bank, and it's all happening in real time, and without a secure layer, it won't happen. So that's just one of the most simple examples, providing API security when two institutions federating with each other. That's one. Secondly, a more interesting one in modern times has been, and you would have seen irritating ads pop up on your browser when you're browsing for certain products, and a couple of days later you see that product come across in a different website. So cookies are following you all over the place. Definitely new models and channels of sales are being enabled by technology, but at every step, all sorts of security measures have to take place now.
Okay, great, thank you. Avinash, if I may ask you, your organization is going through a major digital transformation, as I understand, talking to your CEO. What kind of role has security played in enabling that digital transformation and ensuring that it doesn't run into some kind of, I don't know, pitfalls? Are you using more of technology? Are you using more of, controls, business controls? Or is it more of some kind of data, using data for AI or whatever, analytics?
See, again, it will be a combination of all. See, while organization go for any transformation, so certain things will be there, and we are fortunate enough that at present our board, top management, everybody is quite aware of this fact that cyber security is very much important and it cannot be bypassed. So this is a good tool with us. So what is happening, as earlier also discussed, in every engagement, CISOs are being involved right now in almost all the organizations. So what happens, we know what is the requirement. We know what our business departments are going to do and what will be the impact on our internal systems. So at that time, it may be that whatever security systems we are having, we can means integrate with those and we can manage all that. But if anything such is happening that we are not able to cater right now, I'm sure that nobody will say no in the organization, and CISO has the free hand. But CISO, CISOs are not a business department and they cannot they can only suggest. So it is like we'll suggest what best security measures should be there, and the human factor and organization culture factor will be there, that these problems or these things are there which has to be taken care by all the employees or all the teams, and our security requirement should be clear for those also, those organizations through which means those who are bringing products for digitization or our in-house products are there. So our team should be clearly knowing that what is the requirement, what CISO and other security experts are saying, that these requirements to be met, then only we will be able to securely give the product. If in advance everybody will be knowing that, then I am sure everything will be taken care of, and we can give seamlessly our services to either our employees who are going to field or to our customers. So clarity will be there. Means clarity is must, and second, the top or topmost this management, that should also be, they should also be very clear that what timelines, what budget, what exactly efforts this will require, so that in future there should not be any confusion. See, in midway, if some decisions will be averted and something will not be taken which was required, then there will be a mess. Means we don't know what
Obviously.
in what means circumstances we will go into. So clarity is the main thing for any transformation. Then
So
periodic
does it,
review. Yeah, yeah.
I'm just wondering, with all the interaction that you and your team are having with all the different departments and divisions, does the reverse also happen, that you are giving some ideas, using this kind of security, you can push this kind of transaction or this kind of business, or target this kind of customer?
It also happens, but not very frequent, because
Give one
right
example
now
if you
in this
don't mind.
there is a too much pressure. So whenever something comes, it really goes to those teams. But mostly it is like that. They state a they tell us the problem statement, and then we look into it, that how this is secure, or what kind of other steps we can take, and we should move ahead. But it should not be hindrance. See, main purpose is, see, business is doing for profit only. So we should not be hindrance, but we should not be like that also. Okay, you go ahead, it will be seen later. So that approach will also not work.
That is
So
not.
both should be in sync.
So my open question to everyone: have you in your organization, if there is any example where the information security has recommended something as a product or a feature or a service or something, that marketing or sales or business has adopted, that yes, this is something that we can do for the benefit of our customers? Any information security team has come up with something of this nature? Babita, Makesh? Yes, Mr. Nagamohan, please share.
We have one product. Very, very unusual, I agree. So
Okay.
actually now we have one product. CISOs do not go with basically suggestion of products to attract customers. Generally, it doesn't happen, I agree.
Correct.
And no bank can drum or trumpet that they are having a fantastic security. That is very dangerous, because all the hackers looking elsewhere, they will look at you immediately. And if you eat that, you don't say it once again. So as far as security is concerned, we cannot talk too much outside also, even if you are in a very good position. That's the weakness we have. So, but one product which is called Star Token, we have one product. Star Token. Well, actually, that gives a gateway to enter into your internet banking solution. Internet banking actually facility. So that Star Token is a world-class security. I will not name the company and all.
Okay.
But that's a wonderful solution that has been actually showcased as a good security while the marketing people are approaching the customers and talking to customers and all. So this is a wonderful security we have, the Star Token, and it's a world-class security. Your internet banking transaction can be taken care of by the security can be taken care of that way. Is one of the marketing. This one, the security is also marketed there. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah. Security, we can use it as a marketing point. It's possible, but not very publicly. As I told you, it's not possible that we have one security. It's not possible.
In other organizations in our panel here, has any marketing teams approached you that we want to market the security aspect for customers who are very secure. What about customers who are very security conscious? Okay, right now we're talking of the organization being very security conscious. But if you have customers who are very security conscious, maybe some HNIs or maybe some, whatever. How
Manoj,
does,
there are places where corporate customers are very conscious about security. There are partners who work with us where the customers belong to both the organizations. They become very sensitive. So there are obligations which normally put in place says that, okay, before we start engaging with each other as a partner, I would like to know about your security. And that's where actually this messaging goes, says that how good we are into security, right? And there are, as you rightly said, there are HNI group of customers. There are very, very niche investment companies which work with financial and banking institutions in India. I think for those cases, yes, security becomes paramount important in terms of actually top 3 priorities in addition to other parameters which they evaluate. Because a lot of places, I think they share PI data, they share very, very transactional data. So they are very keen and they are very sensitive about knowing the security practices of the organizations. Not at a very superficial layer, even down to the level where they do even biannual audits on certain aspects.
Okay.
Yeah. But I have never seen individual level people are very conscious and asking organizations about the security practices until they come to know about some breaches somewhere else.
Prabhakar, I think you were also trying to say something.
Yeah. Actually, we are a service provider and we are a product as well as a service organization. We are also giving hosted services. We are also providing products. So we give a lot of recommendations for product features. So obviously it will get into the product. Example, like, I think long time back, it is not now. Your first transaction cannot be on POS. You have to do on ATM, then only you can do on POS. It's there for ages, but long time back it had happened. Similarly, we have product toggle, I think every bank has got. So a customer can block his card at his will, he can reduce the limit, he can stop. So de-risking himself. So these are all some product features so that it can go to the banks and through banks they can sell to their customers. I think this is already there for many things. Similarly, your mobile banking app, it will not work on the routed device, it's not supposed to. Similarly, some security feature like, pinning, we call it SSL. There are many features we will give it from our own experience to our product teams so that they will automatically take it to the product and they will put it into their product, like, encryption mechanisms into our products, latest algorithms into our product, how the data can be handled in the product. So there are a lot of architecture level and feature level information we give it to our product teams. We are also a product company by ourselves. So what happens is, but this feedback goes from the security background, because we have the security background, we go and recommend them. Of course, there are a lot of standards are also there, like PCI, also CAS is there, NIST. There are a lot of market feedback is also there. So it's like, one is the functionality of the application, like 3DS we call it, that OTP you are getting, and similarly now people are going to frictionless payments and risk-based authentication. Basically, frictionless payment is the risk-based authentication is that they will not ask too many questions. Only when they get doubt, they will challenge you. So a lot of these kind of features will come through the security, kind of a knowledge, also from the mandates, also from the, the collaboration happening. So it goes to the products, and products will be enriched with a lot of these features. Even what is the strength, even algorithms we improve. Previously we were talking about triple dash, now you go for AES. Similarly, how to handle the passwords, dongles, soft tokens, integrating with the third-party product. You may be having your own standalone product, but then you can integrate with another product instead of you developing a product by yourself, the feature by yourself, so that the combo will work out very well for you.
Okay.
So it definitely happens, but depends. Like, because we are in a product kind of a thing, a lot of inputs what we give, the product teams will take and they will implement. But from the bank's perspective, they can. I don't know. There are some banks may be having captive developments. Otherwise, most of the times they are consumers of the technology.
Correct. Since you talked about technology, let me come to F5 and ask any recent examples of technical offerings that are helping enhance the financial product offerings, financial services by banks and others, incorporating these features that banks can readily use, and then help reach out to a larger customer segment. Or like he said, Prabhakar said, make it more frictionless or something. What kinds of improvements are coming?
So,
I don't know.
from a technology perspective, right? I mean, obviously the adoption, right? And what we talked about where businesses would go to different geographies or different business models, right? So one of the use case, for example, right, that we are seeing right now is how we can make transaction embedded into the business, right? I was sitting in one of the other panel discussions that was hosted by NPCI. The CEO of IDFC Bank, Madhi, right? He said that today banking is moving to what we are calling as embedded banking, how banking can be embedded into the process, okay? And how we can actually use the risk-based score and other signals, right? Say, for example, a simple thing, I'm just throwing an example, right? Let's say how many times you lost or were not able to book a Tatkal ticket because of a few seconds of delay that happened because you had to wait for OTP. Yeah. Okay. What if it was in a way that the bank could have allowed that transaction without OTP if a card or someone would have offered you that, saying that, hey, you know what, up to 2,000 rupees or up to 5,000 rupees, I will let you do that because I have enough signals to say that, yes, this is Manoj who is coming. This is from the mobile that he's coming. This is from different signals from the IP, from the browser and so on. I can get a fair level of assurance that, yes, this is Manoj who is doing it. And hence, I can probably let him do that transaction without OTP. And that makes Manoj actually do the transaction faster and gain that few seconds and maybe get a score on or get a ticket on IRCTC or Tatkal, right? That's what we are talking about. So what we are talking about is how we can get these signals, and that is exactly what we need. That's why the AI and the ML is coming into play, because it's not humanly possible, right? And we need that technology so that when some transaction happens, it is giving us enough feeds to us so that we can quickly analyze that and take those signals and be able to tell, hey, is there an anomaly somewhere here, right? Or can I predict an anomaly here to say that, yes, is this something that fits the model or the way in Manoj actually transacts? He has an iPhone, he actually comes in from this IP address, he comes in from this geography, he uses this ASN or ASN numbers from where typically he's coming in from. This is the way in which he transacts with it. So I have enough signals. I'm giving you very less number of feeds, but enough signals to tell this is Manoj, and I can do that. That's how we use AI ML to help businesses actually expand into different services.
Yeah, actually,
one of the questions about AI ML, as I understand, is that it requires a lot of data, obviously.
Yes.
But also, from the fraud perspective, if your bank has not been attacked, you don't have that data, correct? Absolutely. But some other bank or maybe some other bank internationally has been attacked, and they have that kind of data. But that until that attacker comes to you with the same kind of attack, you will not have that data. So what I've heard of is there is something called metadata, which about these attacks, which is used, which is shared globally on different forums or in different groups, which helps one bank come to know if other bank has been attacked in a particular, with a particular Trojan or a particular kind of malware or this kind of thing. So as CISOs, to what extent are you sharing data and metadata with each other, and with maybe even with your IT and IT security partners, so that, you know, you're not like a frog in a well who is protecting himself in that well, but you're prepared for attacks that come from anywhere and everywhere, because security has become, frankly, a global playing field. So what is the extent of collaboration happening in terms of data sharing, metadata sharing?
All the information is shared with the regulator, which is a central point, who collects everything from all this one. And based on that, he creates advisories and share with all the this. They may not name the bank, which bank is attacked and what is this one, but they will tell you what is the common advisory based on that incident. So there is one central point, that is C site.
Okay.
The C site, it gathers the information from the respective supervisory entities, and based on that, it creates advisories and again send it to all.
Right. Okay. Makesh, how does it work for your organization? You're not a bank. Are you involved with this information exchange through RBI?
No, I want to tell Manoj, this is something which I was actually putting forward to the regulator and the relevant people in the organization multiple times, that NBFCs are not part of this particular intelligence sharing. I'm not part of the IDBRT, the intelligence sharing which bankers are talking about, and I'm not sure whether that's happening right now. But I think there is a strong need for all the critical infrastructure to have a common platform where intelligence sharing happens at a ground level, not at a CISO's level. Today, if you ask me, I don't have, while I'm speaking to you guys, there might be thousands of events which might be happening at a ground level. I don't think I will have that information. And while we think about sharing those informations with our peers, obviously it will have specific details which organizations might not be very comfortable to share with. There should be an automated platform which should anonymize all this data, and it has to go with the sanitized data which is required only to create that use cases and create that awareness and the advisories to the relevant people. I think to some extent, Certain is making that provisions right now, but it is not up to the level, because we as an organization also has to be ready to share with Certain with those data. Right now, a lot of things are not getting shared with them. So obviously they were having very limited information and to share with organizations where we have registered with them. Okay.
Babita and Avinash, you're also banks, just like Mr. Nagamohan is with Bank of India. Do you share the same I mean, obviously you share the same perspective that he has mentioned, but is there any other perspective that you want to share? And again, one limitation of RBI or Certain is that it would be at a national level. So what about attacks that are coming from outside the borders? What is the learning from banks outside India? And some of you may have actually branches outside India yourself. So Avinash and Babita, any perspectives on the global?
Yeah, like Nagmohan said, we are sharing with the RBI and IDRBT, and they are also sharing like advisories and other intelligence. But along with that, our whatever security vendors are engaged with us, they are also sharing certain advisories, anti-phishing, anti-malware that services who are giving, they are also giving some advisories. So that is also helping, and we can integrate our system with some agencies also which are sharing feeds on all these means attacks and intelligence. So that is also helping. But
so
it's not
a challenge.
Yeah, no, not it's not about challenge. It's about that the way and with what means in what magnitude this intelligence should be shared. That is not going on right now. What
any other perspective?
Yeah, like what Avinash and Nagmohan has told. Like we have a lot of threat intelligence team working for collecting data on behalf of the bank, and they will be providing the data to us. Certain is doing a wonderful job with whose help we can block the external IPs. Even national level attacks are in place. So they are based on the data available with them. They are informing the banks to take necessary steps. Then even NPCI also has recently come up with a new thing that they are trying to collaborate with many threat intelligence teams, because when one thing which I would like to say is there are a lot of threat intelligence teams working in the market right now, and all are worried. Most of the banks are worried about the data available in the dark web. And whether our data is being leaked somewhere, or any conversation regarding the data bank or anything is being happening in the background. We really want to know about it, and based on that only we can take an action to protect our system. But when we are paying huge amount to the market player, the problem is we are not sure whether there is any data is there or not. But still, we are making payment for these players. And even if they are collecting the data, they come up with a thing that it will be in bits and bytes. Like we are not able to analyze that whether it is our data itself. So that is a problem, and based on that, even there were a lot of forums where CISOs also have expressed the same, and because of that, only IDRB, certain and NPCI have come up with a collaboration. They will select some five or 10 people who they will work, and bank should take another person who is not part of them, so that they get a different feel. And based on that, we all can work together to find a way out.
Okay, okay. Let's say from the IT companies, F5 and FSS, how do you see this sharing of data as? Are you also involved in the sharing of data? Can you value add to it in any way?
Yeah, actually, we are actually indirectly regulated, not directly, because we are a service provider to financial institutions. And what Sudarshan was telling, no, that is what I was also referring before. We call it risk-based authentication and frictionless payments and frictionless service. So that what will happen is that based on the risk profiles, the risk profile has got so many parameters, something like 200 plus, and already we have come out with some 180 parameters we use on the back end. It could be IP, it could be identity, it could be browser, it could be anything like, you know. So, but it has got its own privacy concerns, because now previously the privacy data, people talk about only your name, your PII and all. But today your mobile, your browser, your IP, there are so many things can identify who is that guy. So indirectly your profile also will tell you that it becomes part of PII, personally identifiable information. So I know that this is the phone and this is the IP, this is the browser, this is the geography. So if I club some 20, 30 parameters, I can pinpoint on that individual. So it means that 20 parameters together will form PII. Okay, it's a different subject. And now another important point is that with respect to the technology usage, even F5 product has got a small feature called data guard in their own WAF. You can use it from the source itself, a lot of encryption can happen. But again, the way you have to implement it makes a lot of difference. All the technologies are good, but implementation makes really help. If you are not implemented well, the technology is as good as useless. Okay, so you have to implement it a little, you know, you have to use, you have to put your brain, you have to involve and develop your use cases, and you have to really implement the way you want it to happen. So that is one. And with respect to this collaboration, what happens is that because we are in a domain where we are indirectly regulated, our customers will send us a lot of advisories. We ourselves are subscribing to a lot of advisories. So we get a lot of advisory, and interchanges will give a lot of advisory because the banking fraternity, so they will understand what I mean by interchanges. So interchanges will give a lot of advisory. Similarly, the certain can give a lot of advisory. Even USCert you can subscribe. USCert will give a lot of advisory. Even vendors give a lot of advisory. F5 has given, say, recently an advisory on a 0-day RCA kind of a thing a month back, if I'm right, on their web product. So immediately we have to plug it. Similarly, Microsoft releases every second Tuesday, if I'm right. Oracle releases every quarter. So a lot of advisories come. These are all standard things. Out of turn also, they will give a lot of advisories on the vulnerabilities, one part. And second, anywhere attack happens, you have to see whether it is applicable to your environment or not. Example, we have classic cases like Equifax happened. There are so many things happen every day. You will come in the news itself, even though you don't directly get from that particular company, through the media, through social media, to print media, you will get a lot of information. The moment you get that information, you can check for yourself whether this kind of a thing can happen in your environment. Probably I may not have that kind of an asset, that kind of a technology in my environment. It's not that it happened somewhere, some ransomware attack happened on a particular technology. Doesn't mean the same thing can happen, because the variants are there. So it's like a virus variants, worm variants, and so there are variants. So you have to see that variant is applicable to your environment or not.
So this last point, if F5
Yeah,
has a point.
I'll on this
data.
very interesting topic, which we've been discussing, where people are, you know, sharing threat intelligence. F5 acquired a company called Shape Security, and we have what is called the SAFE, which is Shape AI fraud engine. And this Shape AI fraud engine does exactly what we've been discussing over the last 30 minutes. We see about 2 billion transactions a day, and we share this intelligence across all our customer bases, especially B2C, including banks, in terms of the kind of threats that we are seeing in other geographies, and we enable and protect much ahead of time threats that might come to our geography much before they actually do. I'll do another interesting point that Ms. Babita brought up. Credential stuffing. We see about 100 million credential stuffing attacks a day. When your credentials are stolen, they never go on the dark web. Credentials are first weaponized and monetized. Once these credentials are weaponized and monetized, much later, 6 months later to a year later, they appear on the dark web. And a lot of service providers will come back and tell you, here is your database that I found, give me some money to providing you this database. But you will see that either those clients don't exist with you, or passwords have already been changed, or those email IDs don't exist anymore. So that's another very interesting service that Shape AI offers in real time, rather than coming back to you 6 months later once they're found in the dark web. And there are many sources where we gather this information from, including the dark web. So very interesting stuff happening on Shape Security with F5.
Thank you once again for participating in this discussion with Banking.
Thank you, Manoj.
Have a great day.
Thank you to all the panelists as well. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.